if you are going for that strategy. Just whether the King Gambit's going to be the play in here, because you've got the Terra Fairies available to keep yourself safe from that as well, and also that single strike Urshifu that would be very effective, that has joined the field immediately here for Adam, paired up with that Raging Bolt up against the Ogerpon, Wellspring and Fluttermane for Nick.
Yeah, it's always a good Pokemon to lead straight away, because even though leading Pokemon means you've got Protect available, because you're not going to be using it in consecutive turns out of turn 1, you still can't go for it in front of an Urshifu. Wikibo still is so offensively pressured upon the opposing team. But I like Adam's lead here with the Raging Bolt as well, because it offers that potential Electro Web, which this one doesn't actually have, but maybe saw also that Snarl to kind of reduce the damage of the Fluttermane at this point too, which obviously threatens this Fluttermane and itself, the Raging Bolt itself too. But with 2 Fairy Weak Pokemon, it makes a lot of sense to be switching at least one of them out.
Yeah, you got to switch out your Fairy Weak Pokemon here, at least, because that Fluttermane is threatening a lot of damage here, especially because potentially it's going for a Terrestrialization as well to be able to increase the damage output even further. Yeah, there is that Fairy Terrestrialization coming out for Nick on that Choice Specs Fluttermane. Going to be doing so much damage here. Could have potentially picked up the KO on that Raging Bolt if it didn't go for its own Terrestrialization, but it won't be picking up the KO on this Urshifu because it is going to be detecting.
Yeah, it's a nice defensive play here from Adam, it seems like. And Fluttermane is going for that Dazzling Gleam, so it would have knocked that Urshifu down to its Focus Sash, most likely. But with a lot of damage back here, this Tornadus is going to still take a lot of damage with that Choice Specs. And it is at over 50%, so definitely in range of another one. Ivy Cudgel, though, is into the Urshifu. So Adam makes a really good switch in here. A risky one at that, but he just does keep himself safe.
Nick would have launched the Ivy Cudgel into that Raging Bolt slot. That would have been enough to KO the Tornadus. That would have been no Tailwind available for Adam. And then Nick would be in a fantastic position. This is still pretty reasonable. You still got to commit the Tailwind so that your Urshifu is going to outspeed the opposing Fluttermane, but it's not going to be able to pick up the KO now that it's gone for the Fairy Terrestrialization, which is usually offensive, but in the face of a single strike Urshifu actually becomes defensive as well, because then the Wicked Blow becomes not very effective and shouldn't be enough to be able to pick up the KO on that Fluttermane. And at the same time, the Ogerpon's pretty free to just go on the offensive as well.
The Tornadus doing what it does best, getting that priority Tailwind straight onto the board, so Urshifu could come out with a close combat into the Ogerpon Wellspring, taking a huge ton of damage right now at the moment, when it's probably in range of any attack right now that Adam has on their end. But it's going to be first be a responding Dazzling Gleam from this Fluttermane, KOing the Tornadus and putting this Urshifu down to its sash. And we're still yet to see this Ogerpon move at the moment, so if it's going to be any sort of attack, it's most likely this Urshifu's going down, and it's going to be a double KO for Nick. And yes, it is. There's that Ivy Cudgel.
Yeah, easily going to pick up the KO on this, down to 1 HP for Urshifu with a critical hit just for good measure. You've got to guarantee that KO. That's a pretty strong start for Nick. At least you got the Tailwind here for Adam with your last 2 remaining Pokemon, but already after 2 turns down to the final 2. The Raging Bolts, if it's Assault Vest, you got to train it a little bit in speeds to definitely outspeed the opposing Fluttermane, and you can still just go for a Follow Me with the Ogerpon to keep that Fluttermane safe, launch off another Dazzling Gleam. This is going to be pretty effective here, and the last Pokemon on Adam's side has to be quite effective against this Ogerpon and Fluttermane as well. There is that Raging Bolt joining Fin, and there's Ogerpon, so you would ideally want to go for an Ivy Cudgel into this Fluttermane. That would do the most amount of damage, but then you could be going for an Ivy Cudgel into that Water Absorb Ogerpon.
Yeah, which is very dangerous because suddenly you're getting absolutely nothing out of that turn instead. Now, with the Fluttermane kind of staring down these 2 Pokemon, you may consider, if you're Adam's end, to maybe go for the Terra Fairy on the Raging Bolt. No Terra has been gone for yet on Adam's end, so he still does have that option here. And I think we may be seeing at least 1 Terra on one of these Pokemon here. We'll have to see who it is. It is going into the Ogerpon, actually, which makes a lot of sense to be able to take those special attacks a lot better, as the Embody aspect is going to be boosting up the special defense of this Ogerpon that we've seen it do time and time again this weekend.
But you can only choose one of them. The special defense boost is going to be great here, but now the Raging Bolt is still very much weak to Fairy, and the fact that this Ogerpon is going for a Follow Me to keep the Fluttermane safe from the Ogerpon on Adam's side of the field, then it's not going to be targeted by a super effective hit or anything on the physical side. You could probably get Snarl off because the Ogerpon's been KO'd here. Any attack would be going into this Fluttermane, but it's just a Thunderbolt. That's hitting on the special side. It'll do some good damage here, just below half though. That's allowing this Fluttermane to freely fire off yet again another Choice Specs Terra Fairy boost boosted Dazzling Gleam and does massive damage to the Raging Bolt and also a very respectable damage to the Ogerpon.
Highly respectable, Jamie, yeah. Thanks to that Assault Vest, which Raging Bolt seems to be carrying almost exclusively at the moment. It's able to take that hit, but it's not going to be able to take another one, and it looks like Ogerpon needs to help out its buddy Raging Bolt here to be able to KO this Fluttermane in the following turn. But thanks to that choice specs on Nyx and on the Fluttermane, it cannot protect. So it should be able to go down to a clean Ivy Cudgel, or even a Horn Leech at this point, to be honest. But at the moment, the Porygon 2 has now come in. It's got a down low boost to its attack, which isn't as effective as special attack. But looking at the board state at the moment, there's not a lot that's going to stop this Porygon 2 doing what it wants, because it's just so bulky with the Eviolite, and you're going to have to at least double into it to be able to have a chance to KO it. And if it's only one attack, it can just recover off the damage.
Yeah, it's one of the bulkiest Pokemon that we do have available in the format, while actually still being very respectably offensive too. Fluttermane's going to switch out here, going to try and stall out the last couple of turns of Tailwind. Gouging Fire is going to be the Pokemon joining the field here for Nick. Getting that speed boost, we've got confirmation of that, and a very good switch in indeed. That was a Horn Leech, not an Ivy Cudgel, into the Fluttermane, trying to get some recovery, but recovering almost nothing because it hit into the quad weak. Gouging Fire now followed with a Thunderbolt as well, still not very effective into this Gouging Fire. You do get a paralysis though, so that speed boost might have allowed the Raging Bolt to outspeed the Raging Bolt even in Tailwind. I've had a nice beam, not quite enough into the opposing Raging Bolt here. So, but at least for Adam, he's got that paralysis and the Gouging Fire. You're now going to be definitely outspeeding on this last turn.
Yeah, you certainly are at the moment, thanks to that paralysis. And you see Ivy Cudgel this time going straight into the gate. These trades wasting no time to get off their moves. And Porygon 2, oh my goodness, taking that so well. That was a Terra-boosted water attack from Ogerpon, and Thunderbolt goes into it as well, easily taking that attack. And the Breaking Swipe finishes off that Raging Bolt, going through straight that paralysis, and with a critical hit as well. Another kind of wasted critical hit on Nick's end, but it's all good because there's another attack drop on that Ogerpon Wellspring, and Nick is in a very strong position right now. Following up with the Terra Blast as well is that Ogerpon. Not quite enough still, but with 3 Pokemon remaining, Nick is in a fantastic position.
Yeah, and I don't think it really matters at this point because the Fluttermane's in the back. Yes, the Gouging Fire is paralyzed and now will underspeed the Ogerpon, but Nick can just bring in their Fluttermane whenever they want at this point, and you'll be able to pick up the KO. Maybe a critical hit into the Porygon 2, that might pick up the KO as well. Doesn't really matter. Nick's got this game pretty pinned down.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, he could just come straight in, outspeed after the tailwind, yeah, as you're saying, Jamie, and pick this up. And to be honest, it seemed like Nick had so much offensive presence straight out of the gate, thanks to leading that Fluttermane into 2 very weak Pokemon. And Adam didn't actually lead their speed control option in the Tornadus either with the Tailwind, so couldn't really get around that Fluttermane at all in that first turn. So kind of looking into the game too, and you can see kind of Adam thinking about it here a little bit too, kind of giving himself a little bit more time. He really wants to kind of work out what he's going to do versus that. I think maybe switching up for a Tornadus lead instead, or maybe the Ogerpon at the same time, could be a bit more effective.
Your only real fairy resist is the Golden Go, which is a pretty good fairy resist, but it's not Ghost resist, which is one of the awkward things about Fluttermane versus Golden Go. So if you're opting to lead with the Golden Go, trying to get a Make It Rain to be able to KO the opposing Fluttermane, then you could be taking a Shadow Ball for good measure on the way. But at least at that point, you wouldn't be locked into Dazzling Gleam, which was very effective in that previous game. And then if you're locked into Shadow Ball instead, maybe the Urshifu has been freed up to be able to go on the offensive. But leading with 2 fairy weight Pokemon, that just put Adam on the back foot immediately because of that. And you could just go for the Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam. There was, what, 3, 4 specs Terra Fairy boosted Dazzling Gleams that were launched off in that game, completely unopposed.
Yeah, completely. And Adam didn't bring any fairy resists either to this game. But the Golden Go is there on the team. So question is, does Adam consider bringing it this time? Obviously, with the threat of the Gouging Fire and its fire-type moves as well, it may not be the call that he wants at the moment there, but the King Gambit as well sitting there, but again, wasn't brought to the match. So maybe if Adam can correctly call what Nick is actually going to bring to the match, he might stand a little bit of a chance versus Nick's onslaught of a Pokemon.
Yeah, you've got to do some kind of adaptation here. You can't be leading with Urshifu and Raging Bolt once again in the face of that Fluttermane. I wouldn't be surprised if Nick leads their Fluttermane once again. It's still a very effective lead, even were there to be the Fairy Resist in the Golden Go, because you can still threaten massive damage with the Choice Spec Shadow Ball. And the Ogerpon, if that's led as well, that doesn't really care about the Golden Go, at least on the first few turns before it's Nasty Plotted, because you could get that Embody Aspect, get that special defense boost, and be resisting any Make It Rains as well.
You certainly can. There's a lot of dynamics that can happen with both these trains. Let's see what they've brought to the match. It is the Ogerpon Wellsby and the Incineroar. A complete switch up on Adam's end, and it's the Ogerpon and the Fluttermane. A little bit more similar for Nick on this game too.
Yeah, you needed some kind of adaptation here. Nick sticking with what worked for them in the previous game, but Adam, like going with the Incineroar here, much better. It's going to be able to survive any attacks that the Fluttermane would want to go for much more effectively. Yes, it's a fire type that would resist, but it's going to be neutral thanks to that dark typing as well. You threaten a fake out into the opposing Ogerpon, that could free up your own Ogerpon on Adam's side of the field to freely launch an Ivy Cudgel into the Fluttermane without the fear of any follow me redirection. And the fact that the Fluttermane is choice specs means that that's actually a pretty free play to go for. So seems like a pretty reasonable adaptation from Adam here, thinking ahead to be able to just potentially stop that Ogerpon from that getting that water resort to stop your Ogerpon on Adam's side.
So yeah, let's see. We do see a little locking in of that Ivy Cudgel. Let's see if Adam calls it and maybe attempts a follow me in this game. But first, it's the Terra Fairy on that Fluttermane, which it did in turn 1 last game and made such good use of here. And Fluttermane is no stretch for Pokemon. Oh my goodness, Spiky Shield on the Ogerpon this time. I think this was an Incineroar target, Jamie. Yes, it was. Moonblast straight into that slot. I think we knew an Ivy Cudgel was going into there as well. So that is a huge amount of damage. And Citrus Berry is going to heal up this Incineroar, but with a super effective Ivy Cudgel coming its way, I don't think this is going to be enough. And this means Nick is going to be 4-3 up straight after turn 1.
Yeah, what a fantastic play coming out there for Nick. That could have just been a fake out and, so he said, a Terra Ivy Cudgel into the opposing Fluttermane, but incredibly brave, expecting that Spiky Shield doubling up into this Incineroar. That fake out is no longer an option. There is the Golden-Go at least. That is a Fairy Resist, and now you know you are locked into Moonblast on the Fluttermane. It can't threaten a Shadow Ball this turn, but still, taking care of the Incineroar immediately on that first turn, and the fact that the Spiky Shield has been used on the Ogerpon means that that's no longer safe on this next turn. You could freely launch out a really powerful Moonblast into that slot, and you could pin it with a Horn Leech as well. If you go for a Moonblast and a Horn Leech out of Terra, you're doing massive damage. In Terra, suddenly you're weak to Horn Leech as well, so what a fantastic start here for Nick.
Yeah, this is fantastic. It's just quite telegraphed as what Nick is probably able to do at the moment. But actually not going for that double up immediately here. Ogerpon being saved into the back this time, and Gouging Fire instead is coming in. Obviously able to take those Make It Rains a little bit better, and those Horn Leeches a little bit better as well from Adam's end. But yeah, there is that Moonblast, as you said, Jamie, into that Ogerpon slot, which is, oh my goodness, that is a one-hit KO right there. This Fluttermane is pulling no punches.
Yeah, he needs to go for the Embody Aspect boost there, but you couldn't do it in the face of that potential Horn Leech that could have come out from the Ogerpon. But again, a fantastic play from Nick here, switching in that Gouging Fire now to threaten down this Golden-Go. It did get a nasty plot, so it is threatening some pretty good damage, but that's the Urshifu waiting in the back, and that's not what you want to see facing down another Choice Specs Terra Fairy Fluttermane.
We haven't even talked about how Nick has taken no damage yet of their entire team so far, and they're 4-2 up versus Adam as well. So this is such a dominant game, but with a nasty pot boosted Golden-Go and a single strike Urshifu, there's still always a hope there.
Oh, they got plenty of, like Adam's got plenty of damage available, but you don't have any speed control now. The Fluttermane is definitely going to be the fastest Pokemon for the rest of the game. Ogerpon could be faster than the opposing Pokemon. Gouging Fire with its speed boost for sure will be. Not opting to go for any Moonblasts at this point with the Fluttermane, just keeping it safe, because that Porygon is going to be pretty bulky, and getting a special attack boost as well. It's very nice.
And there's the Protect from this Golden-Go, hoping to catch a Fire-type move from the Gouging Fire, which it does as well. Nick being so far ahead, probably can afford to play a little bit more safe in this game, and Adam needs to really turn up the heat, and it's certainly like they have with the close combat into that Gouging Fire. But we do forget sometimes that Gouging Fire has such good physical bulk compared to its counterpart Entei, and actually takes that so well to the point that it probably could take another one, Jamie.
Oh, it's going to be super close. It did just do over half damage to that opposing Gouging Fire. You will still be able to get off another attack, though. That won't be in range of Sucker Punch if that's how much damage close combat was doing, which means you can heat crash either slot here. If the Golden-Go stays without a Terra, which we are seeing a Terastallization here, then it's probably in range of being KO'd, especially with a combination of maybe Ice Beam to that slot. That's why this Golden-Go is now forced into its Terra Fairy to survive this turn at least, but now you've dropped your resistance to Fairy for that Fluttermane waiting in the back.
Yeah, and it's going to be able to hit so hard going forward. But here's the Heat Crash first. Let's see how much damage this does. It's about a third, so it's going to be able to take another one here. Close combat into the Porygon 2. This is probably the most damage you can do into Porygon 2, but it's still not a KO. That is a bulky duck if I've ever seen one here. Still surviving that pretty comfortably. But with a follow-up making rate, it's not enough, but the Gouging Fire's bulk yet again prevailing, able to hang on with 16 hit points.
That is now in range of Sucker Punch, though, at least. So there's definitely ways back into the game for Adam. The Golden Go is going to recover a little bit with its leftovers. Now it's dropped its Steel typing. The Flutter Mane has been freed up quite a lot here. You've got to be in range of a Moonblast for the Golden Go, and it's going to be pretty close if a Dazzling Gleam's enough to be able to pick up the KO. Most leftovers Golden Goes are run pretty bulky, so I wouldn't be surprised if it were Dazzling Gleam, it would survive, which probably forces you into Moonblast, into that opposing Golden Go, which would be fine as well, don't get me wrong. The Gouging Fire could follow up with any extra damage that it needs with a Heat Crash into either slot, and you don't really care about this Urshifu with the Flutter Mane. Wicked Blow will do some very good damage, but assumedly it's going to take 3 Wicked Blows to be able to KO that Flutter Mane, which allows you to completely free to go for those Moonblasts into that Golden Go before it would be KO'd. And if you focus down on the Flutter Mane to try and take care of it, this Gouging Fire could have been free to go for whatever it wants this turn, and what it wants to do is switch out into the Ogerpon.
It certainly is. Ogerpon, the great friend, coming in to support Nick in this game here. And yeah, there's the Sucker Punch, as you called, Jamie, and what Nick also called expertly. Dazzling Gleam coming out from the Flutter Mane, as it did so well in Game 1, into both of these targets, and it's actually enough onto the Golden Go there. So even with above 50% hit points, it was still doing so much damage once again. This Flutter Mane, absolute tank of doing damage.
Yeah, that was a massive KO there, taking away any chance that Adam does have in this match. Will be unfortunately going down to that 10-4 record, but for Nick Schrott is going to be taking this win in this round 14 and moving on to that all-important 11-3 records.